Hey, what's up? I want to kick off in 7 day coverage with a story that I think needs to be talked about to properly enjoy the rest of the day and the reveals and such that we're probably gonna get. So let's jump into it. So, what this story talks about is going back to something that happened a few weeks ago now, maybe a month or so, where some developers from a studio called Keywords were laid off, which, with the way the industry has been this year, didn't seem that crazy until more details came out, and now there's kind of a big, confusing mess around it. So, Keywords is a studio that is a QA studio. It's very common for there to be these indie studios that all they do is QA, which is quality assurance, quality assessment, where they test games that are about to come out. It's not uncommon for publishers and studios to use these kind of indie QA studios if they either need more help or if they've decided not to buy and to not employ their own QA and instead go with a cheaper contracted option. So what happened here is the dispute is that these developers who were doing QA work for EA and BioWare on the upcoming Dragon Age Dreadwolf game were laid off at the end of their contract. That doesn't seem like that big of a deal because contracts end and it's not the contract, the contractee's job to indefinitely do contracts. It's why they end. You can move on from them if the terms or whatever are no longer in line with what you want to do. The allegations here are that when BioWare and Keywords were pressuring these devs earlier in the year to return to in-office work, and that's when they unionized, that this not renewing the contract was a retaliation from their unionization and not wanting to return to in-office work. We now know for other reasons, which I'll talk about in a moment, that they were still working remotely and actually remoting in to hardware at BioWare's offices in order to do this testing. Now, my take on this is that it's hard to judge intent unless there's going to be a lawsuit where there's discovery and we can find emails and things that talk about the actual discussions that happened around these contracts. Even if BioWare didn't renew the contract with Keywords for crappy reasons, either because the unionization had made them too expensive or they didn't like that they didn't want to return to the office, that's not really on BioWare that these people got laid off. These people got laid off because Keywords didn't find them a new contract with another studio or another project and then laid them off, presumably. So now what this leads to is a new part of the story where the Keywords developers who were laid off have decided to protest. And they've decided to protest not at Keywords, but at BioWare Edmonton. And they're doing this because they feel like this was, BioWare's fault that they didn't renew the contract, and that was a thing that was aggressive, or it was done on purpose, and it wasn't just the contract just happened to end. Part of their reasoning being that as their contract was ending, BioWare had these QA developers train a new set of QA that was going to be working on the game after this contract ended. One of the interesting parts about this is that technically there's some legal issues. In Canada, you have to basically apply to protest. And in theory, they shouldn't be able to protest at BioWare because they were Keywords employees, and that's who laid them off. But they went to court over it, and the court is allowing them to protest at BioWare because even though they didn't work there, they were remoting into hardware that was there, making it a work location for them. So they're going to be allowed to protest there tomorrow on N7. So, my take on this, it's a complicated thing to talk about. My base stance is that BioWare deserves a lot of crap for the layoffs they did in August with long-term devs and writers and people who had been with BioWare for a really long time. BioWare is not without bad decision, without fault in general as a studio, and EA as a publisher is not innocent in all ways, right? This situation's a little more complicated to me because Keywords, this independent studio, laid these people off. And even if the contract wasn't renewed for reasons that kind of suck, it's still not EA and BioWare's job and responsibility to continue contracts out of good faith. Maybe they should if they want good press and things like that. But they probably didn't do anything technically wrong, right? Now, the issue here is that EA BioWare should probably just employ their own QA departments, and maybe they do. I don't know enough about this to say if they do or not. Assuming they don't and they contract that work out, that's maybe a different issue to get into. That does look a little bad on them. I guess my issue is that this starts to just look like these people want to protest at BioWare, maybe not because they really believe it's BioWare's fault more so than Keywords, but because they know it's N7 day and that it's a day that all eyes are going to be on BioWare, or at least a lot more eyes than normal, and it's a way to get their protest noticed, to get their plight noticed, and to get more attention and sympathy, which is fair to a point, and especially because they were able to legally give proof to why they're allowed to protest at BioWare. It's fair. I just don't think it needs to ruin the excitement of the day where we're anticipating some interesting Mass Effect Next news. So I guess what I'm getting at is I think we can think it sucks that Keywords laid these people off. We can think it's kind of shady that they didn't have their contract renewed after some of the drama, and that maybe BioWare and EA aren't completely, not involved in this and maybe don't deserve a little bit of shade. But you can also see the opportunistic flair with this decision and this protest. So I'm going to keep all this stuff in mind. I'm going to still enjoy the day and talk about all of the cool reveals we hopefully get today. And that's what I think about this. So in the comments down below, tell me why I'm wrong, or if you agree with me, or what your favorite color is. I don't, whatever you want to do. Thank you so much for watching. If you want more Mass Effect news, especially in 7-day news, pay attention to this channel for about the next month or year, depending on how patient you are. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button if you like the video. Comment down below with how you think about everything. I'm Bond Diesel all over the internet, and that's what I have for this one. So until next time.